dark, kindle the spark in me.
Hey everybody, welcome to our latest episode of Flicker. Before we continue going through the next part of the Sermon on the Mount, let's spend a brief moment talking some 16th century astronomy, shall we? In the 1500s, sometime, scientist by the name of Nicholas Copernicus started a revolution. He published a document that suggested, based on his observations, that the sun was in fact the center of our solar system and not the Earth. Even though for a long, long time the accepted conventional wisdom was the Earth is the center of all things, because we kind of assumed we humans are the most important thing in the world and therefore we must be the center of attention. And Copernicus said, no, I've actually looked at the data, and if you really pay attention to it, it suggests that's not what we thought wasn't actually the case. We're actually going around the sun. That changed everything, and for the last 500 years, scientists have used that observation and that model to get a better picture of where we are in the world, in the universe, and discover, I don't have to be scared or threatened by not being the center of the universe, but maybe that's a more honest picture of actually where I am. That idea of remaking our picture, rethinking the whole scheme, the whole mental picture of how things work and where we find our place, something just that revolutionary is going on in Jesus' teaching in the Sermon on the Mount. Even though we sometimes downplay just how radical, just how revolutionary Jesus really is. So I want to suggest that what Jesus does in this next part of the Sermon on the Mount is just as revolutionary as what Copernicus did. And it forces us to see our place in the world in a whole new way, and it forces us to hear Old Testament commandments in a way maybe we're not used to hearing them as well, taking them, but going, I'd never thought about it this way. And Jesus is the one who helps us get our heads on straight and put God back in the center rather than me and my upset feelings. So let's take a look. The next place in the Sermon on the Mount, Jesus continues to take this pattern. He'll take a commandment from the Old Testament, from the Law of Moses, and then he'll say, but here's my interpretation. Here's what it actually means. Jesus goes on to say, you've heard that it was said, an eye for an eye and a tooth for a tooth, but I say to you, do not resist an evildoer, but if anyone strikes you on the right cheek, turn the other also. If anyone wants to sue you and take your coat, give your cloak as well. If anyone forces you to go 1 mile, go also the second. Okay, so a couple of things. First off, Jesus quotes this important principle, this commandment out of the Hebrew Scriptures, out of the Torah, the Law of Moses, that says, an eye for an eye and a tooth for a tooth. It's sometimes called the lex talionis, if you want to speak fancy Latin. It just means the law of retaliation. If you do something to me, I'm going to do the same thing back to you. Now, in its original setting, that commandment's given as a limit on how much retaliation or revenge anybody can take. It's not meant to be a mandate of how much revenge you can take, even though for most of human history, that's the thing we do. You hurt me, so my pride is offended, I'm gonna hurt you back the same amount, right? And Jesus sort of, first off, calls attention, like, that's not really what that commandment was meant for. It was meant to put a limit on things, because in so much of human history, things spiral out of control, and I feel offended, you hurt me, so I'm going to hit you twice as much to make sure that you know that I'm stronger and tougher than you. And pretty soon, it's you hit me, so I'm going to kill you. You kill somebody I care about, I'm going to kill your whole family. You take something from me, I'm going to burn your whole village down. How much of human history is us doing that to each other? And in enough of a repeated spiraling cycle of violence that nobody can even remember who started it, but just that we're sure I'm going to finish it and I'm going to destroy you. The actual commandment from the Old Testament is meant to put a limit, to say, if somebody hurts you, you're not allowed to do more to get back at them. So if they knock your tooth out, you can't do anything more than knock their tooth back out. We're ending it there. We're preventing it from becoming a spiraling cycle of violence. That's what the commandment was always meant to be, but over enough time and enough of our sense of being upset, and I need to show somebody I'm stronger than them, we've heard that or turned it into, you must get revenge when somebody hurts you. Jesus calls us back to, that was never really what it's about. And in fact, Jesus says there's better ways to break that cycle of violence. There's better ways to put things right again. And that justice isn't about getting your pound of flesh, like Shakespeare's character insists on, but instead about putting things right again in ways that protect those who have been hurt or stepped on or victimized, but also don't attack victimizers and don't attack oppressors and turn them into a whole new cycle of violence all over again. That's the thing. When I bully you, when I hurt you, but then you hurt me back, now I feel like I'm justified in hurting you yet again. Jesus breaks the cycle. And notice what he does. Because Jesus doesn't just sort of teach that we're all supposed to be doormats either. Sometimes people caricature Jesus saying here and make it into you're just supposed to like getting bullied or like getting punched and don't ever speak up, don't say anything. Jesus has something more subversive in mind that makes us rethink everything. Okay, so let's start with the first piece in the text we take a look at. Jesus says, if somebody strikes you on the right cheek, turn the other also. That's not saying just submit to unending pummeling, or that people who are in abusive relationships should keep getting punched, or that kids should just let it happen when other kids or when their parents abuse them. None of this is what's being said. Let's think about an ancient Near Eastern culture where in everything things are right-hand dominant. That's not only just sort of because genetically most human beings tend to be right-handed, but in a culture that is really, really strong on pure and impure, clean and unclean, there came to be this whole unspoken set of rules about their jobs you're allowed to do with your right hand, and there's only some things you use your left hand for, things that are unsanitary that you don't want to get your hands all messy for. I'll let you fill in the blanks there. So Jesus says somebody strikes you on the right cheek. In a culture where everybody's right-handed, to hit me on the right cheek, someone else is going to have to not punch me, but to backslap me, right? With a back of the hand. If somebody is hitting you on the right cheek, they've got to, and they're using their right hand, they've got to slap you like that. That's not like a fight between equals. That's me putting myself in a position of power over you and slapping you like you're an inferior. That's me treating you as less than. And Jesus responds, if somebody strikes you that way, if somebody's going to smack you like that, you turn the other cheek. As if to say, if you're going to attack me, you have to look me in the eye and treat me like an equal. The idea is this shakes up the other person to go, oh, I've been a real jerk to you. Oh, and everybody else watching the scene goes, oh yeah, that was totally inappropriate. You can't treat this other person like they are less than. If you're going to antagonize them, you have to treat them like a social equal. That changes everything, right? Jesus is speaking in the midst of the Roman occupation in the days of the Roman Empire, where the Romans' assumption is they're better than everybody else, and they look down on you, and they can treat anybody walking down the street who's a Judean like they're less than, like they're subhuman. So they're going to smack you around like that, not so much to beat you up, but just to put you in your place. Jesus says, if somebody tries that, you stare them in the face. You say, if you're going to attack me, you're going to have to treat me like an equal. Go ahead, punch me on this cheek. Go ahead. Now, similarly, when Jesus says, if somebody compels you to go 1 mile, go ahead and walk a 2nd mile. There's this understanding in the first century that Roman soldiers, Roman centurions, had the ability to compel anybody who was under their rule to carry their pack for a Roman mile, standard Roman mile. And this is, again, not so much that the soldiers get tired carrying their stuff. Maybe that's a piece of it. But it's more just one more way for Rome to flex its muscle and show we're in charge. We can make you do whatever we want just by our force. And because our rules say we're allowed to, if you threaten that, if you don't comply, we can now throw you in jail or beat you up or throw you in prison or something like that because you're not complying with the carrying stuff for a mile rule. It's one more way that the people on top keep the people who are subjugated, the people who are ruled by the empire, in their place. Jesus says, all right, how about this? Don't get yourself in trouble. Go ahead and carry it a mile, and then carry it a 2nd mile without being asked, as a way of telling the Roman soldier, you're not doing it because they made you. You're not afraid of them. You're not doing it because they've intimidated you or bullied you. You're going above and beyond what's asked of you. And you're doing it in a way that kind of shames them for being jerks again, but also shows the alternative possibility of love. This is the radical movement Jesus does. Jesus doesn't tell people who have been treated poorly, just keep getting beaten up and just like it, but find creative, non-violent ways to show those who are treating you wrongly that you are fully human and worthy of respect, and to model that also by showing that respect, that kindness back, even if it hasn't been shown to you first. That's revolutionary. That changes everything. It changes our whole picture, even of that famous rule, an eye for an eye and a tooth for a tooth. It says, we don't have to keep perpetuating this unending pattern of a cycle of violence that spirals out of control. We can break the cycle. That's how things begin to get better. Both for the person who's been stepped on, when I'm the one who's been stepped on, and for the people who've been doing the bullying, because they don't understand that they are affected, that they're not in right relationship with other people too. Jesus really is doing something radical as what Copernicus does when he says we're not the center of the universe. The sun is the center of the solar system, and we go around it in the solar system. That changed everything. Maybe Jesus is onto something just that revolutionary if we will allow his words to help us rethink everything. Simmer on that. We're going to dig deeper into the next piece of the Sermon on the Mount next time, but join us here on Flickr.